All right. So I have no clue exactly how I'm going to start this off. Besides, we got to talk. Discussion 101. I cannot believe that I end up going to one place that I have not been to in years. Just because I'm off work, I didn't feel like cooking anything and I just wanted something quick. Ba da ba ba ba. This is a Powerade. Probably the healthiest option and the most unhealthiest place that I can ever imagine being. But with that being said, man, let me fix my sleeve because I want to talk to you guys about something. And if you've noticed the video title, then you pretty much guess where I'm going with this. Now, I have been very adamant and very vocal when it has come to females and females claiming that they enjoy anime and video games, and how me being from the 90s, this was kind of like a taboo amongst females. And it wasn't until, I don't know what years the anime came out, so forgive me, but it wasn't until Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece came out when anime really started to become, popular, that females began taking a liking to anime, even if they weren't necessarily watching anime, even if they wasn't specifically watching those three animes. But it was around that time. And even now, females that watch anime and play video games shock the hell out of me. I think I told you guys in a video in the past that I was just talking to a girl recently at my job who started watching anime, and she basically told me that she was always wondering why guys watched anime. They never was into watching anime. She was never into watching anime. And this is the case for every girl in the 90s. It was probably like a small handful, but I can guarantee you 98% of females was not into watching anime. And of course, I always knew what the reason was, but the reason that was always shown was that females used to always, and I mean always, want to get around guys because they like guys and they didn't know how to approach them. So they would go after the dudes who were popular, or the guys who was playing football who may not have been as popular, or got on the football team just because they thought it was going to help them get girls or whatever. They go after the jocks. And any person who was labeled a nerd, or whatever the case may be, never anybody who was labeled a nerd, or whatever the case may be, if you was labeled that, then you will automatically assume that you was a lame, because it was a stigma on nerds or anything like that, that they would only watch Pokemon, play Pokemon games, or play Final Fantasy related video games. And that was a lame thing to do. It wasn't popular back then. You can't find that now, because, not for nothing, the struggle of being a geek or a nerd or anybody who enjoys anime, period, or loves playing video games, period, or anything fantasy related, the stigma on that has kind of been broadened with time. So a lot of these females came into the fold when there was no struggle to be had, when they didn't have to worry about people picking on them or anything like that. Most of the time, the guys was just using them for pussy anyway. So they were less likely to be greedy with that type of nonsense up front. You know what I mean? As opposed to the guys, we had to, I was never like the swirly type of guy. Nobody did that to me, but I know of some guys that possibly got swirlies. never witnessed it, but I can see a couple of those guys from my past getting their heads dunked in the toilets, being held upside down. It was a fucked up time. But in this video, we're going to talk about, I know I'm 5 minutes in, but in this video, we are going to talk about what exactly was the reason why females was never into anime and video games. And it's quite simple. Females have too much other shit to worry about to be concerned about watching anime and video games. That's basically it. Now, for those of you who never dealt with the opposite sex, or some of y'all guys out there never dealt with the opposite sex, and it shows, because y'all be in these females' Twitch channels who claim to be quote-unquote gamers. And again, I've been very vocal. I hate that term because it's a generalized term for people that like to play video games, to try to group people together that don't belong together. Let me just pull this off my face. Forgive me for that. But the point is, they had so much other shit to worry about. For example, women in general are the purest form of chaos. Now, what do I mean by that? That everything about a woman is chaotic. And naturally, that's just how they are. Because as they grow up, between men and women definitely, their bodies go through more changes. So by nature, they have more things they have to worry about opposed to a guy. As a guy gets older, you just get bigger. Your penis might hurt or whatever. I don't know. I've heard some cases where scientifically that happens. A guy's dick hurts as he gets older, because he's going through puberty or whatever. I don't know. That never happened to me, but, whatever. But a female has to go through different phases in her body because a woman's place in this world is more important than a man's, in a sense of what we're put on this earth to do. A woman's purpose on this earth is more important than a man's. Let's get that very clear. Got all these cars passing by, forgive me. But most definitely, it's more going on with them genetically than we have to deal with. So because they have to go through these things, they don't have too much extra time like we do when it comes to extracurricular activities like that. Now, some of them, they do what they can, they do what they can, but eventually they're going to have a period of time, no pun intended, where they're going to have to rest because they're going through things. And oftentimes for them to like doing other things outside of that, they have to kind of force themselves to go through it. Naturally, they just got to deal with, as their breast grows, their chest hurts, their breasts hurt as their breasts get bigger. They have to go through menstrual cycles, period cramps, you name it. Mood swings, attitude problems. Then in between that, they got to deal with all the pressures that we have to go through just growing up as human beings, with people breaking their heart and, them being bitchy and shit like that from people doing them wrong and guys doing them wrong. Because that happens. But the fact of the matter is, they have, just overall, they have less time to dedicate to these things than we do. So, by nature, they don't have a lot of time to enjoy all this stuff. They just don't. I'm not saying they're always going through that and they can't enjoy anime, but this was the case in the 90s. They didn't have a lot of time. And the ones that did were always pressuring the girls that didn't, into being like them. And, girls at that, whoa, this wind is blowing right now, so hopefully this helps a little bit. But it's a lot of girls that aren't used to having a lot of attention. Just like you got a lot of guys that aren't used to having a lot of attention. But this is primarily girls that they don't get a lot of attention. And so when they see girls that do, or they want to talk to a guy and they feel like they gotta like beauty themselves up or whatever the case may be, that oftentimes they get attention from guys that don't mean them any good, and their egos get inflated, and then they start turning bitchy. Let me put it to you like this. I got a good example of this, right? This is back in 2007. You know, I was going to this school called Ruston High School. There was this girl in my art class, right? Ruston High School, Ruston, Louisiana. There was this girl in my art class. Now this girl was, if you were to give her like a number on the scale as to how beautiful she was, I would say she had to be no more than like a 3 to like a 4.5 at the best, at being the best, and that's on a good day. You know, with certain females, like the lower they number, depending on how they dress that day, you know what I'm saying, it's going to determine how they look. You know, so either they're going to come to school looking busted, or they're going to end up, you know what I'm saying, being, you know, looking okayish. You know, so a 4.5 being the best. Now this girl, she was real sweet. She was very kind-hearted. And let me just say this for the record. It's guys out there that got some solid 3s and some solid 4.5s. And because of how they treat you, personally, they could be a 10 to you. To you personally. But in the world of, you know, where they value looks over everything, just in like the simple-minded world, she would be considered a 3 to like a 4.5 at its best. No lower than the 3. But she was a kind-hearted girl. She was shy. You know what I'm saying? She didn't talk to too many people. You know, I would say what's up to her, and we would have conversations occasionally. And, you know, it wasn't that I was trying to be with her or nothing like that. It was just, she was a cool person. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how it was. And I remember one year, or it was like several months, you know, I don't know if it was during the summer break or whatever the case was. You know, like I said, we was cool and whatever the case was. And after that summer break, when we come back to school, I tried to say hi to her again, and she just had this snooty ass attitude, like out of no damn where. Like she just thought she was just too damn much. And I'm the type of guy, like I see things early, and I just call it out for what it is. Well, I don't call it out, I just recognize it for what it is, and I just leave it alone. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is what I started that whole Operation Stop Simping. I stopped it for that reason. Because don't think that a simp is just these guys who are just like, they don't have any experience with women, or the case may be, or it's just, you know, girls simping over the high school jocks. Sometimes the simps are the girls that are getting hit on by the guys because they don't have enough experience to know when they're being used. They're so busy trying to be, you know what I'm saying, somebody's girlfriend, but they don't know when they're just somebody's slut. Somebody's comeback, as we used to call them. Skeezer, jump off, as they say in some places. They don't realize that. So because when they don't realize that, they start thinking that they're too much. Their egos get inflated because they don't realize that you're just easy pussy for the guys who are popular. So you put so much value in that the guys who actually was cool with you, you feel like they don't qualify to be in your life anymore. So you push them away, or you have an attitude that drives them off. And next thing you know, you by yourself alone. Worst case scenario, you end up getting pregnant by the guy that you was fucking with. That he don't want to deal with you anymore. He ain't claiming the baby. So you just, you know what I'm saying? You just fucked yourself over. And it's like that, you know, that's an unfortunate reality. But going back on subject, it's some of these girls that just, they didn't have the time to dedicate, you know, because when it comes to animes, anybody who's been watching animes for especially as long as me, again, I'm 32 years old, been watching anime since the 90s, since the early Pokemon, the original 150, back when Gundam Wing and Ronin Warriors and Sailor Moon was like the top three to watch early in the morning. Of course, Dragon Ball Z was always there, but it was really Dragon Ball at that time. But you know, Dragon Ball Z, you know, that was that era right there. But they were just never into it. You know what I mean? And if there was any girls that was into it, they were very quiet about it because, you know, they were getting bullied, which is fucked up. I know some girls who got bullied by the popular girls who were watching anime and shit like that. Like I said, there were so few in between. It was like for every 500 guys, or no, I'll take that back. For every 1,000 guys, it was probably one girl that was into anime and playing video games for real. I mean, like really into it. It was that rare. You know what I'm saying? And considering that you were in a town where your circle, probably your intermediate, I wouldn't say your intermediate circle, but like your school was probably like 1,000 guys. Out of the women that was probably there, the females that was probably there, only probably like 5 girls was probably really into watching anime for real. And they wasn't playing video games just to try to get around dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's why it shocked me. Because I come from that era, and that era is still prevalent. Because when you look at these girls these days, they're not really into video games. They're not into watching anime. They're not into anything of that nature. They're just using it as a liaison to try to get attention, to try to up their Instagram profiles, or using it as a gimmick to try to get Twitch followers and shit. And all they doing when they get the followers is dressing half naked and attracting the simps that'll pay them money just for being, just for having on a fucking spaghetti strap tank top and booty shorts. So it's a joke. But shout out to the females out there that actually are into anime and are into watching, you know, anime and playing video games and really do enjoy it. I'm not talking about the ones who act like they into it and all they do is play Call of Duty games. Because let's face it, if you're a female and all you do is play Call of Duty and shooters, you're pretty much a poser, as we would call them. Like you just fake. You're just faking the phone. You're not really into it. You know what I'm saying? Because when we describe being a gamer, you're not in that circle. You're a wannabe. Because shooters never take thought. You feel me? So I'm leaving it at that. I'm home, and I'm gonna get at y'all later. So remember, be humble in victory, be gracious in defeat, but show no mercy in battle. World Warriors Collective.